Peace. What's good? How y'all doing? This is ZaZa Ali. Today is Wednesday, September 28th, 2022. I pray that this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. I am doing very well. Coming to you live. Well, I'm live as I say this, but I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, right on the outskirts of Atlanta, here for my event this Saturday, October the 1st. And I told myself this morning, because I've been traveling, so I'm a few days late with this episode 6 of Headline News with ZaZa Ali. When I woke up this morning, I told myself I was not going to sleep until I got this completed. So thank you to my beautiful group membership participants for holding me down and for having patience with me as I have been traveling for the last week. Shout out to everybody who came out to the event in Brooklyn. It was a wonderful event. I had an amazing time and always a beautiful experience to be out with the people and the whole energetic transmutation that takes place face to face and person to person. So thank you so much to all you beautiful souls that came out. Once again, this is Headline News with ZaZa Ali. This is episode 6. This is a weekly news segment that highlights local, national, and global events, particularly those being censored by mainstream media. Headline News with ZaZa Ali airs every Friday exclusively on the ZaZaAli.com private membership channel. The first half of this video will be available on YouTube. YouTube has suspended my main channel, so I will be posting it on my backup channel. Once you guys start seeing this video, please subscribe to my backup channel. My main channel is probably not going to be back up until late December. That's when the second strike on my YouTube account apparently expires. So yeah, the censorship is real. And even though YouTube is allegedly rolling back restrictions on talking about certain things pertaining to the Jim Jones juice, apparently that has no benefit to me. So first half of this video will be available on YouTube on my backup YouTube channel, which is ZaZa Ali. And obviously, if you see this on YouTube, you'll be seeing it from there. I may even post this on Instagram and Facebook just to let everybody know how to access my YouTube content. And then the full 1 hour episode of this, the full 1 hour episode, excuse me, will be available on demand or by joining my membership channel. And you can get information about that at ZaZaAli.com. Last but most certainly not least, once again, I will be speaking this Saturday, October 1st, 2022. That number numerically breaks down to 2222 or hashtag 2222. So the synchronicity and the importance of that number, not only for that particular day, but for what's ahead of us with the ending of this year. Things are getting critical. Hopefully you are moving with urgency in your mental and spiritual and emotional space, physical as well. But I think we're more so, all of us are more so prone to be focused on the physical. It is the mental and the emotional and the spiritual aspects of self that most people tend to ignore or neglect, which is why all of us as a collective consciousness are currently facing what we are facing. But once again, I will be speaking live this Saturday, October 1st at Gallery 992, A Divine New World Order. Excuse me. You can get tickets on my website, ZaZaAli.com. We will also have tickets available at the door. All right. If you have questions, email me info@ZaZaAli.com.
For 8 consecutive nights, people in Tehran have defied authorities to protest over the death of Mahsa Amini. The 22-year-old died in custody last week after being arrested by so-called morality police. She'd allegedly violated the country's policy on headscarves. Similar protests are spreading across Iran. In the northwestern city of Oshnave, demonstrators defied a warning by the Iranian army that it would confront what it called enemies of the state. Similar protests were held in the western city of Karamabad. Tehran has limited internet services to clamp down on the growing dissent.
The problem is if they switch off the access to international networks, to the global internet, then with the national internet or the national intranet, it's really hard to use those VPN services, safe messenger apps such as Signal,
The US government has eased export restrictions on software and some technology to Iran to widen online access, but analysts say it's unlikely to have an immediate impact. Several demonstrations in support of the government have also taken place in Iran. President Ibrahim Raisi says Amini's death must be investigated, but has called the protests acts of chaos.
They want to ride a wave and create riots and disturbances. They think with such moves they can stop the nation. We have announced many times that if anyone has a fair comment, we will listen to it. But anarchy, disturbing national security, the security of people, no one will succumb to this.
So far, though, the protests show no sign of dying down. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera.
There is an extra sound coming from my computer. It's a little hot. I've been on it for a while now. I'm hoping that that sound isn't coming through on your end and that you can hear me clearly, and that everything about, the videos and everything is coming across clear. I won't really know until I watch this afterwards. If it's incomprehensible, then I'll have to film it again, but hopefully it's just a little irritant in the background that I can definitely hear it on my end, but hopefully it doesn't interfere with the sound on your end. Again, I'm not at home. I'm not in my normal, production environment, if you will. So I'm juggling working with what I have. Okay, but hopefully everything is good on your end. So, Iran protests death toll rises to 76 as the crackdown intensifies. And this is a particular article that I found very interesting. Iran protester, they said if we didn't keep quiet, they would rape us. Remember how I'm always talking about looking at, the underlying message, the thing that they're not saying directly, right? That's written within the message. So this, and I'm going to talk about this in just a second. This is one of the layers of the psychological and mental war, because on the outside it looks one way, on the surface it looks one way to the average person, and then on the outside to a person that may be a little bit deeper and conscious, it'll look a certain type of way, but it's really a totally different situation, right? I'm going to explain that in just a second, but quote, they put me on the ground and an officer put his boot on my back. He kicked me in my stomach, tied my hands, picked me up from my arms, and then pushed me into a van. This is how 51-year-old Mariam, a protester arrested last week in central Tehran, described the moment Iranian security forces detained her. Protests have spread across in Iran since the death on September 16th of Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old woman who was detained by the morality police. Imagine that, morality police. That's hilarious, especially in this day and time. In the capital 3 days earlier for allegedly breaking strict hijab or headscarf rules. Police maintain that she collapsed at a detention center after suffering a heart attack, but her family alleges that officers beat her head with a baton and banged her head against one of their vehicles. The protests sparked by her death, led mainly by women, began with demands to end the mandatory hijab laws. But they have now turned into nationwide demonstrations against Iran's leaders and the entire clerical establishment. I personally see this, and I can see with the celebrity fanfare that's, now kind of attaching itself to this, how this topic is trending in social media. People are putting up, face covers or stickers and flags and whatnot on their profiles showing that they stand with the women of Iran. That's a clear indication, especially in this day and time, that this is a propaganda event. That's not to say that this young woman was not murdered. They murder people every day. They have murdered many people in the last 2.5 years, with very little fanfare at that. But this is definitely, what I would see as a tactic for one to divert attention from the elephant in the room, the topic that at this point, takes precedence over all topics, hopefully if you guys have been watching my content, you know what I'm talking about. But also, Iran has been one of the target nations in terms of this broader global agenda. Now, this next slide that I'm going to show you is going to put context into what I was saying before about these different levels of how this game is played out. These are the statistics of Iran up to date Jim Jones use. I've said that so much, my tongue is tired of saying it. Jim Jones juice. The people that are familiar with my content and that watch my content know exactly what I'm talking about. I have obviously had to mark out the words in this particular image because once again, my other page, my main page, has been suspended for allegedly spreading misinformation. In truth, it's just because I have been spreading truth and because I have been spreading truth against liars. But so the numbers, I mean, the words have been carefully X'd out within this image so that you can see enough without me getting another page suspended. So this is how this game and this war is being played out on multiple levels, right? Because for some people, they see Iran as they're a target. They've always wanted to go in and take over Iran, right? And yeah, in a certain regard, they have. But here you see the statistics of Iranian people that have actually taken the Jim Jones juice. And apparently 58.4 million of them have fully taken the Jim Jones juice. And they have given out 154 million cups of the Jim Jones juice to the masses of their people. So I don't know. Is Iran really a glitch in the matrix or a target for the West and the powers that be? Based on this, I don't think so. This is the real game. This is the only real game in town right here. This conversation right here globally. Even when I looked up the statistics of Russia, because right after I did this, it dawned on me that I had never checked for Russia. Because remember, everybody thinks Vladimir Putin, or at least the, quote unquote, the theorists of conspiracy, being careful with my words, have an algorithm stalking me. But there's a lot of people in that realm that think that he's a glitch in the matrix and that he's somehow, coming in to topple or to, stand up against, the elite or the powers that used to be. Yeah, but look up their statistics of the Jim Jones juice. I would beg to differ.
I heard the seismic alert went off. I ran outside. Everything was moving as I was running through the stairwell and all that. And I thought that glasses were going to shatter on my face or, using all kinds of stuff.
It felt quite surreal to begin with, something, like a shake, but it grew very, very quickly. Really quite frightening, desks shaking, chairs up and down. And just as we were leaving the classroom, our outside wall collapsed. So that was really frightening, and nothing really prepares you. Obviously, you do your best to be professional and calm, but it's hard to kind of disguise with fear. And obviously, the students are incredibly frightened. So it was a real kind of tough task trying to remain composed.
Actually, I wasn't sure I was gonna make it. Luckily, I'm still here, and many people, thousands of people, went into the streets after this quite heavy and prolonged shaking on an especially poignant day. This is the 32nd anniversary of one of the grimest days in Mexico's history, when an earthquake left 10,000 people dead. I've heard reports of victims. I understand that dozens of buildings across the city collapsed, and that the rescue efforts obviously are underway to remove rubble as soon as possible to find people trapped.
I know the death count perhaps wasn't as huge as compared to other areas of Mexico, but in Mexico City, I just feel like there's still so much damage and still finding out numbers. It's really, really frightening. And you can see on social media, my Mexican friends, you know, are communicating desperately with one another, trying to find out where people are, and warning people of areas not to go because it's still not safe. We've still not felt an aftershock, which is also a worry.
Earthquake shakes Mexico on anniversary of two major tremblers. The magnitude 7.6 earthquake centered near the boundary of Colima and Michoacan states, killed at least two people. It came on the same day as devastating quakes in 1985 and 2017. Alarms for the new quake came less than 1 hour. Now listen, this is critical right here. This is, oh my God, I wish I could just get people to understand what's happening on our planet right now. Oh. Alarms for the new quake came less than 1 hour after quake alarms warbled in a nationwide earthquake simulation, marking major deadly quakes that struck on the same date in 1985 and 2017. Quote, "This is a coincidence that this is the third September 19th earthquake," said U.S. Geological Survey seismologist Paul Earle. Shut up, Paul Earle. I almost called you something else. There's no physical reason or statistical bias towards earthquakes in any given month in Mexico. Now, on September 19th of 1985, there was an 8.0 magnitude earthquake with a 3 or a 9.8 foot tsunami. The total damage was $5 billion. Excuse me. There were between, get this, 5,000 and 45,000 dead. What do you mean 5,000 and 45,000? I could see 5,000 and 10,000, but 5,000 and 45,000? Ooh, these people are liars and they're not even good liars. And then 30,000 injured. Aftershock 7.5, September the 20th of 7.5. Yeah, and then another one on April of 1986. Is that considered an aftershock? 6 months later? That's interesting. And then the 2017 Puebla earthquake struck on September 19th of 2017. There was strong shaking for about 20 seconds, 370 dead, 6,011 injured. It was a 7.1 magnitude earthquake. Total damage was 8 billion. I found that interesting. There was $8 billion worth of damage, and for a magnitude 7.1 with 370 casualties. Well, I guess the time frame difference, wow, that really goes to show you how little the American dollar is actually worth if it decreases in value that much within that short amount of time. So I'm emphasizing this point and going back on this to make this point. On the day of this earthquake, September 19, 2022, 1 hour before this earthquake took place, there was a simulation. Alarms went off, and there was a nationwide earthquake simulation, meaning the same way that now they have children doing simulations in case there's a school shooting, what to do in emergency type situations, what to do in emergency hurricane storms, et cetera, et cetera. That's what this was 1 hour prior to this earthquake. At the end of this episode, I'm going to be doing a special segment. Our special segment for this week, actually, because we will always have a special segment, is going to be about Hugo Chavez and about the Haiti earthquake and about his prolonged revolutionary spirit in terms of fighting the people that all of us are now being faced with dealing with in one capacity or another in terms of the people that have been running this world. So stay tuned for that.
There is new information tonight on Hurricane Ian's expected landfall. Let's bring in meteorologist Jackie Jarris with our partners at the Weather Channel. Hey there, Jackie.
Good evening, Nora. Ian remains a major hurricane and very powerful after making landfall over Cuba. It's been intensifying once again and will continue to do so all the way up to landfall. There you can see the current wind speed, 120 miles per hour, a Category 3 storm, and it's moving in a northerly direction. Now, this is the latest track, and today we've had a little bit of an adjustment to the right or to the south of the previous track. So that brings this in as a more powerful hurricane, and it comes in a little bit sooner. So any preparations need to be rushed to completion, and that will continue to move up to the north. Storm surge is the deadliest part of the storm. Here's our storm specialist, Dr. Greg Postel, with our exclusive immersive reality to show you what the storm surge will look like.
This is mind blowing.
Extremely dangerous. Hurricane Ian continues to close in on Florida's west coast. We know there will be destructive winds, but also a life-threatening storm surge. We could see water rises above normally dry ground in some cases up to 10 feet. Let me show you what that looks like as we bring the water levels up, let's say to 3 feet. Now, by the time the water gets this high, it's oftentimes too late to evacuate. Who knows what's in this water? There could be floating objects, bad chemicals. Cars can float away easily in this kind of water. We also know the water will rise way above that in some cases to perhaps 9 feet or even above that. Homes and businesses can be completely submerged, and clearly, in many cases, this is just not survivable. So please, this is exactly why we tell you to follow the advice of the officials from the National Weather Service and the local officials to evacuate. Do so, please, if ordered. Now, also make sure you stay tuned to the Weather Channel on cable and streaming for all the latest updates on Ian. Nora, back to you.
That storm surge, such an issue. Greg and Jackie, thank you so much.
That is just so unnecessary and so evil and wicked and demonic, in my opinion, to create visuals in a simulation in an artificial world, right, using computers in order to project into the collective consciousness this worst case scenario of this, very detrimental and dangerous, and in terms of nature, violent experience when it comes to a hurricane, just like an earthquake is a very violent experience expressed through nature, right? So to project this into the collective consciousness at this point in time is wicked and evil and satanic. And that's not to say that, Mother Nature is not, that we shouldn't respect Mother Nature, right? I grew up in the Bay Area. I was in the Loma Prieta earthquake, scariest thing you will ever experience in your life. I was a child. So I have a very fond respect for Mother Nature, but I also know that organic nature is not being able to properly express itself without intervention right now. If you've read my book, The Scientific Intervention in Our Affairs, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, or seen any of my continuous ongoing reports, presentations, conversations, live speeches where I've been talking about weather modification and weather manipulation. This isn't even new, right? And there's proof if we take the time to look up in the sky and consistently see the grids and the white lines that are being pummeled all over major cities and small cities alike, towns, rural towns, and expansive urban areas all across this country. This isn't even news anymore. If you're not aware of this, then the question you have to ask yourself is, where have you been and what have you been paying attention to or not paying attention to? As of now, Cuba, the entire island, is without power. As the last time that I checked earlier today when I was preparing for this, I didn't double check to see if Puerto Rico is still without power, but I do know that Puerto Rico was without power for several days within this past week, right? So these weather anomalies, I keep talking about them in every video because the Bible, Revelations, is being unfolded right in front of our eyes. And in the Bible, never did it specifically say that, when in terms of wars and rumors of wars and earthquakes and all of these tumultuous weather experiences, it wasn't really explained how it was going to happen. So, and this is in alignment with, or this is happening concurrently with this multi-layered sort of full throttle attack on humanity that's happening, you know, on multiple different levels, excuse me. This is, as I've been showing you guys, when sometimes a question is more important than the answer, and just kind of showing you how I assess information to discern truth versus, you know, what the actual agenda is. When I searched the Hurricane Ian tracker on YouTube, all of these live videos came up, right? And it's like, you know, 10,000 people watching here, 8,000 people watching there, 1.4 thousand watching here, 4.8 thousand watching there. So these different news sites, whether they are, you know, nationally recognized news sites like ABC7 or something like that, or CNN, or then your local news site, you know, if you're in the Georgia or the Florida area. But I want to point something out, and in no way am I trying to minimize the severity of this situation. Like if you're in Florida or if you're in the eye of this storm, you should 100% do what's in the best interest of you and your family, because we don't know how this situation is going to turn out, right? With that being said, there have been many storms over the last, I would say 5 years for sure, where, as you can see me circling with the mouse, these, you know, you can look down and there's more live videos and more, you know, content around the storm. But there have been many of these storms that have been really, really propped up. Oh, it's going to be this major storm. It's going to hit. It's going to do that, you know, category 4, potentially category 5. And then they keep dwindling down and never end up really producing strong storms. That's, I think, a part of this agenda as well, because they're keeping people locked in fear-based frequency. They're driving up the prices of natural resources, oil, gas, electricity, water, power, right? And they're also keeping organized chaos right in the forefront, right? So you can never really get your balance. You can never really, you know, start to get some momentum, because once you think you've made it through one, you know, serious situation, here comes another one around the corner. So again, there's psychological wars that are happening on all, you know, scientific wars, psychological wars, biological wars, right? We got to kind of be keen, and again, developing that spiritual awareness and that spiritual discernment to be able to decipher truth or falsehood. Please don't cook chicken in NyQuil, FDA asks TikTok users. Cooking chicken in NyQuil, cold medicine, doesn't sound very appetizing, and the US Food and Drug Administration wants you to know that it's definitely not safe either. My voice is a little, I feel like it's ruddy because I've been talking a lot, because I did the event, and then, you know, I've been out every day. I've been talking a lot. So please, if my voice doesn't sound strong, and it's like 1:30 in the morning here. So there's that. It's 10:30 California time, but it's 1:30 in Atlanta. So the agency has issued a warning about videos that have surfaced on TikTok challenging people to cook chicken in NyQuil, which contains acetaminophen, dextromethorphan, and doxylamine. I tried to pronounce them all before I did this to try to get this right, but whatever. Another situation where they name these medicines and things with these outrageous names, and it's not even necessary. Or similar over-the-counter cough and cold medicines, according to the FDA. Boiling a medication can make it much more concentrated and change its properties in other ways, the warning said. Even if you don't eat the chicken, inhaling the medication's vapors while cooking could cause high levels of the drugs to enter your body. It could also hurt your lungs. TikTok has already slapped a warning on the challenge known as #SleepyChicken. When searching for related videos on TikTok, users are greeted with a message: some online challenges can be dangerous, disturbing, or even fabricated. Learn how to recognize harmful challenges so you can protect your health and well-being. And this is coming to you live from this week's special headline news of NPCs, or non-playable characters. I believe that artificial intelligence is setting up most of these TikTok videos, and the system however you want to allocate that system, artificial intelligence, and those that are, at least those that created it, are basically thumbing their nose up at humanity and making you look stupid at every turn. I believe that these challenges are being configured by artificial intelligence, and it, as well as its controllers or its handlers, or it used to be controllers and handlers, are all sitting back and laughing at how stupid human beings continue to show themselves and prove themselves to be. National Civil Rights Attorney Lee Merritt retained by Costello Vaughn to secure emergency medical treatment and investigate neglect. I first heard about this story from Sean King's Instagram page, and I wanted to share this story to bring attention to this situation. It is absolutely atrocious, the way that they have mishandled this man's life, his physical well-being. I'm going to read this letter from the civil rights attorney Lee Merritt. I think it pretty much gives a full picture of the backdrop of what happened in his story. And then I'm going to play a short clip of Sean King just trying to expanding on his personal involvement in the case and his personal perspective on it. And this is Alabama. And so, as I've mentioned with Oklahoma and Julius Jones, and I'm saying Alabama and Mississippi and Tennessee and Georgia and South Carolina and all of the backwoods, redneck, hillbilly towns and sundown towns and sleepy villages and you know, whatever you want to call yourselves, the divine judgment is here. There's getting ready to have to be a very serious price for you to pay. September 23rd, 2022, in Montgomery, Alabama, attorney Lee Merritt has been retained by Costello Vaughn. This is a screenshot of this image that I took off Instagram, guys. So it's kind of blurry. Even when I shrunk it, I couldn't get the image to get out clear. So hopefully I can read this with clarity. Attorney Lee Merritt has been retained by Costello Vaughn to investigate the conditions of his imprisonment in the state of Alabama. Mr. Vaughn is reported to have undergone surgery this past August to remove a portion of his intestines as a result of gunshot injuries sustained prior to being taken into custody of the Alabama prison system. The Vaughn family believes Mr. Vaughn was immediately discharged from the hospital on the same day as his surgery and placed back into general population at Elmore Correctional Facility. Due to inadequate facilities, abuse, and medical neglect, Vaughn's medical condition rapidly deteriorated. Vaughn is believed to have lost 75 pounds of body weight in less than a month. Vaughn's surgical scars were deprived of or were exposed to to unsanitary conditions and were possibly infected. Vaughn's family began receiving disturbing images of the compromised condition and contacted Elmore's warden for help, but was rebuffed. You can see the original image of how he looked originally when he was incarcerated, and the image on the right, which is absolutely atrocious. My heart really goes out to him. And I wanted to share this story to, you know, kind of get the collective consciousness focused in his direction. Sean King has phone numbers and all of the, you know, information that you need in order to, you know, get active as much as you can, get involved in this case. But for me, I just wanted to bring light to the story and also to send some good energy and some love to this brother, and to, you know, will him to wellness, to protect him and provide for him and cover over him. Whatever he did, I'm not really sure what the background of his case is, but I do know that all human beings should have access to a certain level of care and dignity, especially if you're paying the price for your mistakes. And being incarcerated means you're paying the price for the mistake. So why is this man being, you know, abused? And I just, this is America, divine judgment. That's what I have to say about this.
He's in a concentration camp. And that's what we're talking about here. A Black man who has received such horrible medical care that only after we complained was he taken out of a prison that he was in that really did not even have a medical facility inside of it. Taken from there to another prison that has an understaffed, subpar infirmary that was so bad that when Castillo's sister got to the prison on Sunday, and let me say first off, when she first got there, they would not even let her see Castillo until we complained some more to the Alabama Department of Corrections. And they finally let her in to see him. He was filthy. His clothes were outrageously filthy. He was literally bleeding from wounds, had pus coming out of wounds. His feet were so enormous that they were the size of footballs. And you could touch them and it would cause extreme pain. He was in such utter despair that he broke down crying with his sister, afraid that he was going to die in that place. And people say, well, what's really going on? What's really going on is that in America, but doubly so in Alabama, that incarcerated men and women, we no longer call them prisoners, they are more than that. They are men and women, they are incarcerated. Incarcerated men and women are treated like throwaway people. And for a lot of those men and women who no longer have family that are keeping up with them, no longer have attorneys that are keeping up with them, they feel like throwaway people. And what men and women in prisons all over Alabama have told me is, Sean, people are dying in here all the time under suspicious circumstances because they were sick with something that was easily treated, because they were killed by other incarcerated men or women or killed by guards or staff